Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Andrew Lacey, and welcome to the Zoom call today. Today's call, normally my call is focused on one thing, but I want to talk about 3 or 4 things today and try to tie them all together for you. So if you'll hold on tight, I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I hope you're excited about the market. There's been a pop in the market. Somebody told y'all about 60 days ago there was going to be a pop. I still believe there will be another pop between now and Thanksgiving. With that being said, I'm going to first talk about pushing harder. Pushing harder. I always talk about doing a little bit more of the right things, getting a little bit better at the right things. It can change the entire direction of your business by doing that. Last week, I received a call from Michael Jagger. And he had taken me up on one of the calls where I said, hey, how about doing a little bit more? And I talked about people that have been in the program less than 2 years because their numbers are so much greater. They have a greater opportunity to become successful faster. I want to talk about getting there faster also. If I forget that, somebody please remind me before the end of the call. It was on my trip to Palm Beach last week. But Michael Jagger's been in real estate a couple of years. I coached Michael's dad back in 2003 and was fortunate enough a few years ago for him to get back in the program. And from that, he brought his son to a seminar three years ago. And Michael came to a seminar and left and went back and had 8 closings his first year. That's the national average. The second year, he had 7 closings. But in 2024, he came to the program and he came up to me and said, Coach, I need your help. Now, when I talk about this morning, I spoke about there's 2 ways to get better. There's 2 ways. One is through mistakes that you make and not continuing to make the same mistakes, but when you find out you make mistakes to grow. You must make mistakes to learn. The other is through, we call it coaching, but I call it mentoring. Now, Michael was fortunate enough to have a dad that was a great mentor for him, just as my dad was a great mentor for me. But what helped me was when I went to work for a company that a broker taught me I didn't have a suit. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know the right type of shoes. I didn't know the right shirt. I didn't know you're supposed to wear a long sleeve shirt. My dad had never had a long sleeve shirt. He had white shirts, but it was short sleeve. But he taught me so much about business. That's what I get up each day to do, to try to help young people, middle-aged people, old people, any people have a better business. Your mentor will have the greatest impact of you reaching your goals. If you do not have the right person in your life, you cannot reach your goals. Every now and then a person does without that, but that's a person that has to make mistakes for years and years and years. And that's why I'll tell you that when we went to Palm Beach last week, John and I, it told him to get off at PGA. And I said, John, we don't have to go down an exit. We can get off right here at Military Trail. And he listened to me. And we got off a mile or 2 ahead. And when we got to the bottom of the hill, I said, we're not going to be able to turn left. We're going to have to turn to the right, go down there to the red light. There's a Walgreens on your left. Do a U-turn. And of course, he said, when we got to the light, it says no U-turn. I said, do it. I said, if you get pulled over, when the policeman comes up, you say, my boss told me to make a U-turn. And I'll tell the policeman, I can't see. Laugh out loud. So he got off at the exit. He went to the red light. He did a U-turn. And then we come back and we're going to go under 95. And I said, John, when we go under the bridge, bear to the right. But it said road closed. So we went to the left. And I said, John, we didn't bear to the right, did we? Of course, I can't see it, but I could feel it. He said, no, the road was closed. I said, okay. So we went up the road about a mile or 2. I said, you're going to have to turn to your right. So he turned to the right, went down that road a couple of miles. Then we turned to right again, went down that road. I said, eventually you should be coming back to, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but I can't think of the name of that road. But he named the road. And I said, that's it, make a right, and the hotel will be on your right. So we went out of the way about 4 miles. You know, how many people are going down the wrong road in business? If they had the right mentor or coach, they could avoid going the wrong way and doing the wrong things. Understand, I'm talking about by getting off early, by getting off early, it saved miles that we didn't have to travel. And I'm trying to save you years of struggling when you don't have to struggle. The person that's your coach and mentor that has had the experience, but more importantly, the experience of being successful, is probably the most important person you can ever associate with. So Michael had his dad his entire life, his first 20-something years. To finish that story, that evening when we went to dinner, we came out to the road, and I said, turn right. And we turned right. And we went right back down that road that was supposed to be closed. And we got to the red light to cross over, to go back under 95 and go down to that red light and turn right, to go to a stop sign, turn left, and now J. Alexander's is on our right. Guys, I've traveled all the roads, and I have them, know them by heart. I have them from my memory. It's those same memories that I have in business to help you to navigate and be successful immediately. So when I ask you to do something, do it. Everybody else is going to be trying to put you in another direction. You yourself will say, oh, I got to go in this direction. So when we got back to that stoplight, I go, is the road closed here? He goes, no, it was just one lane. I said, there's a difference between one lane and being closed. There's a difference when you get up each day in what you do to have a closed business or an open business, to have an okay business or an incredible business. It's navigate with someone who's been there and done it. So as I said, in the last few weeks, I've asked you to try to increase what you're doing. In fact, I challenged everyone in Palm Beach to increase their prospects in an hour. They're not new agents. They've been around for years. Now, 1 or 2 of them are newer. But I said, you want to double your results, double the time you prospect. Follow up more. Call your past customers more often. Follow up more. Call people back more often that you've been to see. All these things will increase your production. So last week, Friday morning, Michael, if you'll click on Friday morning, Michael Jager called. And I'll let him tell you what he told me, but he said, I made $50 on Thursday, which was an increase. He said, I had 8 contacts, but they were all not very friendly. That happens some days, guys. That's called life. But is that going to stop you from pushing harder? See, he had pushed harder by increasing his numbers. And then when he did push harder, he got a lot of pushback. But on Friday morning, he came in and picked the phone up. Michael, are you there?
Yes, sir.
I'll kind of let you share from right there.
Yeah, so I got up on Friday morning and I said it's gonna be a good day and somebody needs my help. I just got to find them. I'm not gonna make anything less than $50. So I got on the phone and it was probably maybe between dial 30 and 35, and I got a guy on the phone and was able to book an appointment for 1.8 million after a little bit of a dry streak. So it felt really good and finished out the 50, and that was the only appointment that I was able to book, but it definitely had me feeling good.
Listen, what if you get the listing for 1.8 million? That's like 15 that I would have had. I'd have had to get 15 appointments to do what you did in one, because my average sales was 110,000. Are you blessed to be in a real estate industry where prices continue to go up?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. You know, last week you said every call was special. What makes call special is your ability to listen to what I'm saying. Sometimes you're on the call, but you're not listening. You hear, but you're not listening. White Simpson could come on the call and said, Coach, I've been with you 7 years and I'm finally understanding what you truly are saying. It takes years to understand someone that is at a different level than you. Now, I try to speak in a way that you understand, doesn't matter how long you've been in business. But again, the more you hear me, the better you listen. The better you listen, the better your business will be. Michael, you've been in real estate how long?
Nearly 4 years.
Nearly 4 years. And as I said, I was saying your first year you came to my seminar, you had how many closings?
8 closings.
And in the second year you had
7.
And you'd been to a couple of my programs.
Yes, sir.
But in 2024, January 2024, we were in Greenville, Spartanburg, at the Greenville Marriott. And I remember where you were sitting. You were sitting, I think, on the front row over on my left, about the third chair, second or third chair, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
And I don't remember if it was the first break or the second break or when, but you came up to me and said, I'm ready for you to help me.
Yes, sir.
So you joined the program in coaching and you went from 7 closings to how many?
I had 19 last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Coach.
He'll be 22 years old at that time. He's 23 now. Michael, as I said to you, January of 2024, you get serious about this program and about your business. When you're 35, you don't ever have to work another day of your life. That is if you're smart with your money, which I hope to help you be smart with your money as your dad will. But I want to go into January 25 this year. I want to talk about being comfortable. I've had 5 or 10 agents this year that had the best year of their life in 2024 when the National Association of Realtors was in a lawsuit, and the majority of realtors stopped working that year. And as I said in January, nothing's changed until they changed the law, and I think they changed it a year ago in August, exactly a year ago. And I also said, listen, when it changes, I have the scripts. Don't worry about it. And really, actually, nothing's going to change. And that was, I'm not Nostradamus. I'm not a prophet. But I do have the experience of knowing about markets going up and going down, interest rates going up and going down. And there's always one thing consistent about real estate is change. So why don't we change? I know you're Sean Jager, Michael, congratulations. And again, I said this call was about pushing harder. It'd been easy on Friday morning after having 8 people non-responsive, maybe even rude, to take Friday off. But by coming in that day when you really may have not wanted to, I salute you. Because you did push through and you did pick up the phone and you did get an appointment for 1.8 million. Congratulations. Sean, I know
Yes,
you're
sir.
proud of your son.
Oh my goodness, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Very proud.
What a great job you've done with both of your boys and grounding them. I know the other one is at the Citadel, and we want to thank you for his future service.
Thank you.
But you got to be proud of a young man that's 20. John Nelson and I was talking today. If you get your children grown, young men and young women, and they're not on drugs and they're not in jail, and they're productive members of society, you've done a miraculous job in today's society. Yeah. So you've done a miraculous job, young man.
Thank you.
And your make sure you tell your wife I said that.
I will.
Sean, can you talk to us about your business in the last few years? A little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I met back in 2003. I got in coaching and coached from 4, 5, 6, 7, got out of the business, got a broker's license and ran one of the biggest offices in Charleston and did that for years. And then realized I wanted to get back into sales. I couldn't take the management stuff anymore, managing these large offices, and got back in 2018 into sales, came back into coaching in 2019. That year we went from 18 to 32, the first year coming back with you. Next year we did 41. The next year we did 93. Next year we did 91. And then last year we did 87.
I want to go back a minute. I can see why you would want to be out of management, because you're depending on other people to go to work when you're trying to encourage them to go to work, when you're trying to help them to have a business, when you're trying to motivate them. And just a lot of people you can't do that to. I get to be fortunate enough to work with the cream of the crop. I don't have to have an office where they hire everyone and you're trying to get somebody to go to work. When you come into my program, you're going to go to work, or you're not going to probably stay in the program very long. But when you do decide to hire me, as your son did, as you did, as everyone did, that kind of tells me that you're ready to change. You're ready to go to work. You're ready to have a real business. And I said on Friday's call that when somebody like you or Pam Ford or Matthew Smith or Eric Pruitt or Diane Bryant or Dan Hartley or Marina Arp, and I'm sure I'm leaving a couple of people out, when you come back, I'm the happiest person in the world. And I use the analogy of the prodigal son who wanted his dad to give him his inheritance before his dad died. And his dad did it, and he left, and he had riotous living. He was having a good old time with all that money. Y'all put some of your money up, save some of it so you don't end up where he did. He ended up feeding hogs. Can you understand a Jewish person in there with the hogs, with the swine themselves? And he woke up one day and says, you know what? My servants live better than I do. And he made the decision to come home. And he doesn't know how his dad was going to react, but his dad saw him coming from a distance, and he ran to him, and he got on his knees, and he grabbed his son. And he said, bring out the robe. Put the robe around him. Put my best robe on him. Put the signet ring on his finger. Signet ring is what you use to kind of, is a credit card back then. And let's kill the fatted calf. That's exactly how I feel when Sean Jager came back. It's exactly how I felt when somebody, today I can't see them when they come back, but I can hear them. And there's a feeling in my heart that person came back to let me help them. I can't explain it better than the prodigal son. I'm not saying that anybody, when you leave, you do riotous living, but I always love it because I know one thing. When you left, who I was and what I could do was good, but now is 10 times, 100 times better. Just for one example, there will be an hour of coaching calls this morning. An hour. Guys, to get an hour of coaching calls back when Sean was in there, 5 minutes a week, you multiply the number of weeks. What is that? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 12 calls. We'll do that much time today. I was talking about last 4 weeks, I've done, this is not beating my chest, pounding my chest. Look at me. I've done 10 calls a week because there's one day somebody's going to be on one of the calls one morning, and it's going to affect their day, their week, their month, their year, their life. So why not I do more? Why not I be better? I did the program in Palm Beach, and I will say this, I'm tough on myself. But when I walked out of that room, I said, this is twice as good as any program I've ever done. And that's why I want to encourage you to be in Spartanburg December the 3rd, because it's going to be twice as good as any pro coaching event I've ever done. Sean, if you had not helped your son, it may have taken me, you having him grounded. Not everybody has had the blessing of having a mom and dad, having that stability or having that teaching. You mentored your son. And I appreciate you allowing me to help him.
Thank you.
I want to go to pushing harder and doing more. This is a journal I have. Today is number 30 of 30 days ago. I decided to start walking, exercise. And the first time I walked, I have like a circuit that I do around my house and my yard. And I did 5 times at 600 steps. That's 3,000 steps. And I've increased that over time. But I said this morning, and I want to say again, I increased each couple of days a few more steps. And then I bought a vest that was 12 and a half pounds that when I walked, I had that vest on. It wasn't easy. It was a little different, but I thought it would make me stronger. Sometimes when you add the things that I ask you to do, even though it's not easy, it makes your business stronger. It makes you stronger with each thing I ask you to do. In those last 29 days, today's 30, when we finish here today, I'm going to go home and walk during lunch. So it'll be 30 days in a row. This is very important. The aha for me is this. There's been days I didn't want to walk. There was 6 days that it rained. In the first 10 to 12 days, it rained 6 of those days. And 2 of them I had to avoid a thunderstorm. And one time, I thought I was going to have to build an ark. It was raining so hard. But I walked. And each time I finished, I felt better than when I started. And my aha after 10 to 12 to 15 days was, wow, I bet, have you ever heard me say, I hated prospecting? Never. I've always said, I loved it. And I did. And people that become successful at it, they'll tell you, I love to prospect. But I realized there were days I bet I didn't want to prospect. I bet that because there's days I didn't want to walk. There were days that it rained. There were days that I didn't have enough time in the day. In fact, I missed one day and I got up at 4:30 the next morning and was walking in the parking lot in Jacksonville, Florida. And I said, well, I'm 5 hours past the day, but I'm going to count it as yesterday because I'm going to walk again when I get to Palm Beach, which I did. But each time I did it, I was glad that I did. Yesterday I walked. My first circuit was 800 steps. My second one was 850. My third one was 850. My third one, I believe, was 950, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to cheat myself, so I said 850. But I started counting again, and it was 900 and something. But I stopped at 900 and started again. And the last one was 900. So in 30 days, I've gone from 3,000 steps to over 5,000 steps, which actually at 3 feet a step is about 3 miles. Wow. Also, yesterday I had a 20-pound vest on. I put that vest on a week or two ago and it was kind of heavy and my legs hurt a little bit. So I took it off for a day or two, but then I put it back on. Sometimes when you put something on new that I'm teaching you, it's a little uncomfortable. It may seem a little heavy. It may seem a little difficult. But are you going to quit? Are you going to give up? Or are you going to go forward? There's a lot of difference in the last 30 days of how I feel, how my body feels, but the sense of accomplishing something by not quitting, not making an excuse. I promise you this. Sometimes when I'm taking my suit off to put my sweats on, I'm going, wow. While I was in Palm Beach, I was going to walk with John and Jenny. And right when we got ready to go out after the seminar, it started thunderstorm. So we went back in. Started to go out again, thunderstorm. Started to go again, thunderstorm. And they sat there talking, and I went upstairs and did push-ups. So maybe I couldn't exercise the way that I tended to, but I still did it. Some days you may not get the numbers you want to do or call certain people that you want to, but there's still a way to increase your business. I got a call this morning from Caitlin Ford. That's Pam Ford's daughter. And she's got her license and she's thinking about she's going to go into real estate. And she asked me questions. And the questions were, I can get a higher percentage here, or I can get 50-50 here, and different things. And I said, Caitlin, I started out at 50-50. And if they're going to pay all your expenses and you don't have to pay a desk fee and this thing, that might be the best way to go. But I said, you can't expect to, because you want to go commercial, you can't expect a check for 6 months to a year. If you did residential and then went into commercial, you would probably have money coming in faster. See, I gave her options, but I told her, whoever you go with, explain to them. And she's probably going to go with SVN. I don't know. But if she does go with SVN, and they said something about training her, I said, you've got this. I told her to make sure that she would have someone that can look over contracts and make sure she doesn't get into trouble. But I said, tell your broker that your coach, your future trainer, 2 of the 3 SVN agents that he coaches went the top 100 last year. And the third one, who just got in the program 30 days ago, 40 days ago, took 3 listings last week as a relatively new agent. It's important who you choose to help you. I'm going to repeat this again. Your goals will be determined by who you choose to help you. Most people don't have a way to reach a goal. I said this morning, there's a flowering pear in South Carolina, and they now banned it. It's one of the prettiest trees that you ever saw. But being as pretty as it is, it produces no fruit. Do you know how many people that have a pretty website, they have a pretty this, they have a pretty car, but they have no business? It doesn't matter how pretty it is. It matters if it produces fruit. Would anybody like to say something before we go? Well, let me encourage you today to do a little bit more of the things that I'm teaching you and get a little bit better at those things. And the easiest way to do that is being on the call. But the best thing you can do for yourself and your business is be at a program. I spoke last week about there's something in that, you can see Instagram calls, you can see podcasts, you can have all those things, but are you really paying attention? But it's like I wrote yesterday, I recorded the first chapter, Communicating Effectively. There's nothing that can replace face-to-face. And my programs are designed for me to be face-to-face and close to you and getting your attention and encouraging you to go back and change, or giving you the script to get appointments, or giving you the dialogue to get listings, or giving you what it takes to have an amazing business. I hope each one of you have an amazing day.
Andrew.
Yeah.
I was going to say one thing real quick before we go. Last week you had done a lot of coaching calls, and Thursday morning, I don't know what happened, but it was such a great call. As soon as I got off of that call, I got on the phone, I was prospecting, and literally within an hour of calls, which is, I think, 34 calls, 35 calls, which is not a lot. But I had booked 3 appointments. One was for 1.3 million, one was for 1.6 million, and one was for 600,000.
Amazing.
And it started to hit me as I realized that every single time I need that shot in the arm, I focus on what you're saying in the morning, and I have all the distractions away from me. It helps to just like prepare my mind. So when I get on that call, man, I'm just laser beam focused. And so I want to thank you for that.
This was not rehearsed, and you're right. You're right. That's why I do a call every morning at 7:30, every morning, because I'm hopeful that that's going to propel your day. And I'm going to say something to inspire you, motivate you, challenge you, encourage you. But you just said, I got that shot in the arm. Last Friday, your son said, boss, I got a shot in the arm, a shot in the leg, a shot in the head, a shot in the rear end. He said, I got a shot everywhere last week. Well, these are pretty good shots then. I hope I'm giving you a shot today that will encourage you to go forward. And I hope I can do that each day. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.